In the writing process part 3, we're going to focus on introductions and conclusions. The examples here come from an argumentative essay structure, and they are solely examples. They are not intended to express a moral view or compel support for a particular stance. When you create an introduction, it should be designed to attract the reader's attention and give an idea of the essay's focus. The most effective pieces of writing begin with an intention grabber, which is a device to pull readers into wanting to read more. There are several ways you can create an effective introduction. We're going to briefly review 4. One effective way of grabbing the reader's attention is by providing a piece of startling or surprising information. This information must be true and verifiable, which means the reader should be able to check it out somewhere. And it doesn't need to be totally new to your readers. It could simply be a pertinent fact that explicitly illustrates the point you wish to make. If you do use a piece of startling information, follow it with a sentence or two of elaboration. Elaboration simply means you elaborate on the information by providing more details. So take a moment to look at the paragraph below and consider how the information is organized. Can you guess what the startling piece of information is? In this introduction, the startling piece of information is the first sentence. In October 2014, Colorado collected well over $40 million in tax revenue from a single source, marijuana. The following sentences offer details on how Colorado could collect this tax revenue, which before 2014 actually did not happen. This information leads to the final sentence, which is the thesis. The legalization of recreational marijuana is bound to create more good than bad. Another good way to reach your audience is by using an anecdote. An anecdote is a story that illustrates a point. Be sure your anecdote is short, to the point, and relevant to your topic. This can be a very effective opener for your essay, but use it carefully. Take a moment to look at this paragraph and examine how the anecdote leads to the thesis at the end of the paragraph. As you can see from looking at this paragraph, the anecdote takes up most of the paragraph. It naturally provides elaboration in addition to sharing a story. It starts with Tracy's background, her initial thoughts about marijuana use, and leads to the thesis by explaining how Tracy's thoughts changed over the years. Another good way to grab attention is through use of dialogue. Dialogue means conversation between 2 or more speakers, but it's usually limited to 2 or 3 speakers. An appropriate dialogue does not have to identify the speakers, but the reader must understand the point you are trying to convey. Use only 2 or 3 exchanges between speakers to make your point. And as with startling information, follow dialogue with a sentence or 2 of elaboration. Take a moment, pause the video if you need to, and examine this paragraph. Can you identify the dialogue? Can you identify the elaboration? And see how it leads to the thesis at the end of the paragraph. As you can see, the dialogue begins this paragraph with just 2 exchanges, one from each character. Then it leads into elaboration, explaining that the characters are not discussing tea or coffee, but rather marijuana. This leads into more elaboration, discussing the legalization of marijuana in 2014, and finally the thesis that recreational marijuana should be legalized. Finally, you can begin your essay with summary information, which is general information to provide background for the topic you want to discuss. A few sentences explaining your topic in general terms can lead the reader gently to your thesis. Each sentence should become gradually more specific until you reach your thesis. So take a few moments, again pausing the video if you need to, and examine the structure of this introductory paragraph. Notice how it starts generally and how it is organized to become more specific as it goes on. In addition to the information in this summary introduction going from general to specific, you may have noticed it is also in chronological or time order, starting in the past few decades, moving to 2014, and moving to the years after 2014. You don't always have to organize your summary information in chronological order. However, you should think about the logical structure of your introductory paragraph. You may have also noticed that all of these paragraphs place the thesis as the final statement or final idea of the paragraph. This is a very common structure for academic writing, but it is not the only structure you have to follow. There is some flexibility. You need to consider the logical organization of your ideas. Sometimes the thesis statement works better as the very first sentence of the paragraph. Occasionally, it works well in the middle of the paragraph, but very often it works most effectively at the end because you can place your attention grabber first, and then once you have the reader's attention, you have them focus on your main point. Now that we've talked about introductions, let's spend a minute or two on conclusions. The good news is that conclusions are simple. A conclusion has two primary purposes. One, to remind readers of your main points, and two, to leave readers with something to think about after they finish reading your writing. The conclusion can be briefer than the introduction or body paragraphs. A conclusion summarizes rather than provides elaboration. This means, again, you just need to present the main points instead of giving the details for the main points. A conclusion does not introduce new ideas to consider. This is something you have to look at carefully. If you are presenting an argument or idea that you did not elaborate on in the body, it's best not to put it in the conclusion. So take a moment and look at this conclusion, pausing the video if you need to. Can you identify the restatement of the thesis? Can you see what topics might have been summarized? And can you see the opinion, the suggestion, or prediction that the writer made in order to leave the reader thinking after they finished reading? The thesis of the essay is restated in the first sentence of the concluding paragraph. This is followed by a few sentences that summarize the topic ideas or main arguments of the essay. The final sentence expresses both the opinion of the author as well as reinforces the thesis statement. It is worth it. This is the opinion of the author. It is worth it to embrace the newer, more benign perception of this substance and legalize its use. Legalize its use. That is reinforcement of the main argument of the essay. This author is hoping that the reader will continue to think about the legalization of marijuana in a positive manner after they have finished reading the essay.